Hi, everybody. This is Micah Lieberman once again with the Voices of Scope video, which are always like the best part of my day. And Holly Leslie was at Scope and ran a panel. So, everybody, if you don't know Holly, she's the VP at Ledger Run. And your panel was talking about shifting power dynamics, right? So,
Right.
it was a fancy title, but it's a topic we talk about all. So, before we go into the bigger issue, tell us what you kind of your experience at Scope and talk about your panel a little bit, and then we'll keep going.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, the panel really was really centered on how the dynamics are changing in the industry with sites in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and how sites are becoming much more selective with who they want to do business with, what trials they want to get involved in. But what we really kicked around as the panel was, why are we still having the exact same conversation year upon year upon year? And I actually ended the panel with, tell me what we have to do differently so that we don't have this exact same discussion 3 years from now.
Right.
And what really started to build out of that was taking a look at how you can better partner, but more importantly, build relationships within this
Mm-hmm.
space. I think everyone knows everybody. I think that's always the thing when
Maybe
someone
that's why
says,
Scope's so fun.
it could be. Again, it's a class reunion for me.
Totally.
But yeah, I think, we all talk about how we know everybody, and no matter where you go, if you tell somebody what company you work for, they go, "Oh, do you know so and so?"
Right.
As
Or
if we
they
all sit,
used to work there
or
before
they
you
used
got
right,
there. Right. Right.
exactly. So everyone's sort of interconnected, but we've done that within the pharma CRO space. We haven't extended that down to the sites,
Okay.
and a few years ago, everything was all about site centricity.
Right.
And then we kind of morphed into patient centricity. But I think the reality is, when you're talking about centricity, you're putting that person in, or that group, in the middle of something, and you're surrounding them, but you're not making them part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, sites and the patients want to be part of the discussion. They want to be part of the process. They want to have a say. And you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that without building the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is a bigger statement because I would say, and I think you might have noticed this because you've been coming to Scope, is there is a there is better representation at Scope now with some of the sites and site
Agreed.
networks.
Agreed.
Um, they've gotten savvier with technology and also I'd say pushing back sometimes too,
Absolutely.
and some technology companies are getting better about realizing, wow, this is my client. That not that group. This is the
Right.
group that's actually using
Especially in
my
my
s-
space.
right, right. So, okay, so what it go let's go deeper a little bit because we all agree, okay, patient centricity, site centricity, let's reduce site burden. These are all wonderful things we agree on.
Right.
So what does that mean if you say, hey, they want to be a part of the process and the conversation? Give me a concrete example. I'm Micah. I work at pharma company X, big CRO Y, whatever. Tell me, what does it look like? How do I better engage this key stakeholder in a meaningful conversation, which isn't doesn't happen too late in the process,
Exactly. That's the big
number
part of it.
one,
Right.
right? And actually take some of their insights into account without having to go back and completely redevelop a tool or what. It's a
Exactly.
it's a big ask. So you go wax poetic on that because this is your world, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first of all, you have to look at who you're doing business with in these trials. So if you are using the same group of sites over and over and over again, why are you renegotiating with them at every single
Mm,
turn? Why don't you have, like, you have a master services agreement with a vendor? Why wouldn't you do
good
something
example.
similar with a
Hmm.
site?
Hmm.
No, everybody come to the table and say, for the next 2 years, assuming, and you have clauses or whatever, so that if, God forbid, something like a COVID happens again, you can renegotiate. But these are our standard costs. This is what we all agree to. This is what the protocol requires. And here's the budget. Just make it simple. You know, you brought up a point earlier about continuing to throw more tech at people. And, that's an area where I do think we're actually looking at things a little differently. And we're saying, how do we meet those sites where they are? How do
Hmm.
we not continue to throw another portal at them, another password, another login? Um,
Exactly.
and how are the sites actually doing business? Look at how the site's doing business and then meet them there, and don't try to make the square peg fit into the round hole. I think things like standard terms, standard conditions, payment terms. One of the things that we actually talked about in the panel was, does it really need to be faster or does it need to be reliable and accurate?
Hmm.
And how would a site respond to that? And you don't know unless you have that conversation. I think when we talk about sites outside the United States, that's an area where it's ripe for improvement, because
Hmm.
we always have said as an industry, oh, they're going to be paid every quarter. That's what they prefer. I talk to sites outside the US all the
Yeah.
time and they say, yeah, no, we'd actually
No.
like our money sooner.
Who
And
wouldn't?
you, right, exactly. Nobody wants to wait 4 months for their paycheck. Nobody wants to do that. And when you talk about, I think one of the panelists had brought up that the average site only has 3 months of operating capital on hand at any given time.
Correct. Right.
So asking them to front a lot of money, holding back a lot of money, again, it just doesn't solve the problem. And we stay stuck in this concentric circle that keeps going around and around. And it's really the definition of insanity. We're,
Mm.
we're doing the same thing and we're expecting a different outcome. And I think we've proven by now that doesn't work.
Okay, one more thing.
Yeah.
We also talked about, like, in your panel, the idea of leverage, right?
Mhm.
We talked about building better relationships, but some of these sites, my buddies at SCRS represent a lot of sites. I
Yeah.
don't. At Scope, it's a narrow, it's still a
Mhm.
big group, but by definition, I think they're at Scope. They're really focused on business process, a certain amount of scale. They're pretty savvy. So one of your things from your panel was talking about top performing sites having leverage. So
Mhm.
there's two key terms. They're top performing,
Right.
therefore leverage. I understand that. What does that really mean though? Are they using this? What's changing? Because we're talking about relationships, right? So you want an equal relationship, right?
Yep.
So what does that mean? What does that leverage look like?
So
How would that
that
conversation happen without somebody being a jerk, right?
Right. Well, exactly. And I think that's a really great question. I actually sat through a webinar a few months ago with a group of sites. Some were, the big guys, and some were the
Mm-hmm.
smaller guys trying to,
Mm-hmm.
learn and glean. And I sat through about 35, 40 minutes of it, just
Mm-hmm.
taking it all in. And then I came off mute and said, I don't think you all understand how much leverage you actually have.
Mm-hmm.
And the larger sites were like, mm-hmm. And the smaller sites are like, what do you mean? And I actually shared in the panel, within about 10 minutes, I had 5 different LinkedIn connection requests.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when you are a top producing site, and what I mean by that is you are getting your data in on time. You're doing high recruitment. You are bringing quality patients in.
Mm-hmm.
You automatically have a better standing to be able to be more selective with who you're going to do business with. And when you think about it through that lens, what that really means is that as a site, I can sit back and say, I've got 4 different trials coming my way. They're all relatively similar, but I know those 2 sponsors are very difficult to do business with. They're going to want to nickel and dime me on
Mm-hmm.
my budget values. They're not going to pay me on time. I don't like the payment vendor they're using. You're going to go immediately to the other 2. You're just
Okay.
going to relegate and say, I don't have
Yeah.
capacity for that study.
Yeah.
I think we lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, it is a business. You do have to run a business, but most of the folks that we deal with from a site perspective, they're not in business to get rich. They're in business because they are passionate about
Yeah.
medicine. They
Yeah.
they care about the fact that that person sitting in front of them is someone's mother, father, brother, sister,
Right.
child.
And per
And
per your panel and your what you have is one of the terms you say is like, I think you use the term administrative headaches.
yeah,
Just remove that's what
remove
you're
it.
talking about. Remove it,
Remove
right?
it. Remove
Yeah.
it. Why
Get
are
to the
you
value. Get to the value.
exactly? If
All
if
right.
you capture if you capture a piece of data in EDC, and EDC has become super sophisticated. There's not much you can't capture in EDC. If you're capturing it in EDC, why are you making a site invoice for that? Why are you making them stop what they are doing, hire someone to be able to put
Mhm.
invoices out all day long. It just doesn't make sense. You should look,
Yeah.
we have all of this technology at our fingertips, and the fact that a site has to figure out what a payment was received and what it was
Yeah.
for, it just doesn't make sense. I think, one of the things I brought up in the panel, and I closed with that statement, was that until sponsors really take a hard look at their payment metrics with the same passion and vigor that they look at their enrollment statistics, nothing's going to change.
That's
And,
perfect. Yeah, that's a good statement. That's a good yeah, that's good. And by the way, we're out of time. That's probably the perfect way to wrap
that's the
this up.
perfect way
Is
to end it.
that's say that again. Say that again is say that again.
Until you as a sponsor share the same passion over your payment metrics that you do about your enrollment statistics, nothing's going to change.
Perfect. Boom. Mic drop. Cool.
That's what I do.
Thanks for doing the panel at Scope, by the way.
I loved it. It was so much fun. So much fun.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Oh, I love it.